vote on this one almost at the same time, because it's gotta be done by Wednesday.
I'm glad they're starting to train. That's actually.
He said he'd have 228 now in a couple days.
Do we have the banner yet?
They just got it printed.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this evening. We're thankful for everybody that was able to turn out over the weekend for the various events that were going on, and just thank you for the people who worked hard and tirelessly to help put those on. I know everybody has different levels of expectations, and I know you see this every day of how things should be in our minds, but make no mistake, we're so thankful for what they did, their efforts, and everybody's efforts to help us have a good time and to be safe and to enjoy one another's company. So we thank you for them. We thank you for this evening. We pray for your wisdom and pray for your God to have all the answers. We never have, and we never will, but we pray for your wisdom. Decisions possible for this community as a whole. We pray this in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, Jan, if you would, roll call.
Brandon Elmore.
Present.
Bob Leahy.
Here.
Jason Brewer. Here. Tim Heiss.
Here.
Tito Frias.
Here.
All right, I trust everyone's had an opportunity to review the consent agenda. If so, I would, if there are no questions or comments, I would entertain a motion for approval.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
We have a first, do we have a second?
One second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Consent agenda approved as presented. We do have a presenter on the agenda, but it's not Lawrence. We are very fortunate to have Miss Alex here to present for the library. So, do you want to? I'm sorry.
Well, basically, we have to have our budget approved by the city council. And it is, if you need to review it, it's in the file folder there. It's our budget for next year. If you want to take a look and pass it along, ask me any questions.
When do you need the budget approved by?
Well,
I mean, is it this
the
meeting
public
or follow-up
hearing.
meeting? Or?
Yeah, this is the public hearing, and then at your next meeting will be the adoption meeting.
Okay.
So this is
So-
just opens it up to.
We can make copies if you'd like to take copies home
Okay, that'd be good.
to review.
That'd be preferable.
Okay.
You didn't get all that right now?
Speed reading.
Any questions that, and if she doesn't have the answer, give her opportunity to follow up with you in the next meeting to provide an answer. Is there anything you would like to ask at this time?
Anything special or out of the ordinary that is being budgeted for this year?
It's routine.
Okay.
It's a-
Fair question. Okay.
You're probably wondering why we're presenting it to you. It's a new state law.
Oh, okay.
And that we, I don't know how to put this kindly. There was an error last year when we did our budget, and I wasn't present for it. And because of that, it needs to be passed through you guys this year.
Okay.
You may not get it the following year, or you may, we don't know at this point. It's possible. but we corrected the error, but it still needs to go through, a different authority, or as I call it, the financial overlords.
Yeah, we like that nickname.
There you go, okay, thought you would.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, the reason I asked about the, special or, out of the ordinary expenses is I know there was some work that was done on the library within the past year or two, the facility itself, so.
Yeah, that you guys needed to vote on, it's anything that may come up again, but that's like a separate issue.
Yeah, okay.
Because of the way additional appropriations is dealt with. Previously, it was just simply with the library board, but the state changed the law, so now it has to be approved by, somebody outside the library.
Well, thank you.
And we will have other work done, so you guys will probably see more of one of us.
All right. Anything else? Alex, thank you so much. Department reports, I express my thanks for State Line Heritage Days personnel, because it was a warm one. Humidity's quite fierce. You have, I think you're gonna cover the blight. Are you gonna cover the, okay, so we'll do that under. Department heads, we don't have any department heads here. Jan? Yes, sorry.
Did you want them to present at the end or
Oh, these two? Sorry.
We should have brought a name tag.
Well, if
It's up to you, we're fine.
okay. Thank you, though. Jan, do you have anything else?
No.
Okay. Council members, Tito, let's start with you.
Yes, so 3 items. Last week I received a question from a citizen about how the city deals with sidewalks. I spoke to Steve Shoemaker and he informed me that our current approach, and I'm reading this for the public, and please, Steve, if there's something to correct or whatever, please correct me if needed. Step number 1, the city can remove existing sidewalks at no cost to the property owner when a property owner requests it. Item 2, the property owner must be ready then to form up and pour the new sidewalk, either themselves or by a contractor. And point number 3, to begin the process, simply contact Steve Shoemaker, who is sitting to my right, to schedule the demolition of the current sidewalk at your property. Anything?
That's about a 50% savings on the cost of their new sidewalk.
Awesome. 50% savings on the cost of the new sidewalk. So, okay, so second point is about Union City, Ohio. So it's come to my attention that some of the elected leaders in the village of Union City, Ohio are very concerned that the Indiana side may either stop providing water or one day decide to increase what we charge them by a lot, like 100% or something. So is there any way we can sort of formalize assurances to them that we will never do that? I mean, I think we have more than enough capacity currently to supply both sides with water, even if there were rapid growth, expansion, and new industries coming in. Also, I don't think we're not out to do any price gouging on our friends, neighbors, and relatives who live just a few blocks over. Don't we have a signed agreement with them?
It's capped at 2%.
Capped
It can
at
never be
2%?
raised more than 2, if I remember correctly. Okay.
Okay, that's what I thought. And is that due to expire soon or something?
I thought we just renewed it, didn't we just,
Yeah, that was.
this spring, maybe?
I believe it automatically renews, but I don't know.
So if we could review that and just, there's no reason for people to live in fear.
Well, it makes me wonder if there's not, I wonder if there's even a state cap. Of course, this is a unique situation though too. But I just wonder if there's even a cap from the state where you cannot charge more than X% increase. I don't know. But, it wouldn't be in our best interest to do so because again, it's part of our own town.
This probably goes back to comments that I made when they were presenting, I think it was Baker Tilly was presenting, the water, and then the sewer rate, review for the year, basically, where I had made some comments about, Union City, Ohio actually pays significantly less for water than what we as, on the Indiana side pays, because, and Tim, you made the point that, you know, they're not paying for the infrastructure to get the water there too.
Right, yeah, we're
for them,
only
so.
collecting basically half of that, of what their total bill is, because they,
Yeah.
you know, there's two sides to that. We're just selling them water, we're not
Yeah.
providing the rest of
Yeah.
the service.
And the other part of my comments was that, you know, the contract, we're only raising the rates 2% per year. That's, I mean, in the current, you know, economic situation that we're in, I mean, that's not even keeping up with inflation. So I think that's probably where some of the concern was from. I mean, there's still, I think there's no concern that we're gonna raise the rates 100% or something ridiculous like that.
We just check to see if, you know, if that renews automatically and when it comes.
Yeah, I know it doesn't renew automatically, because I know you guys have to approve it.
Yeah, we
As do they too, correct?
Yeah,
They have to
I
approve it
believe
also.
Yeah.
So,
Not long ago,
what's
It
that?
wasn't
a
very
couple
long.
months maybe.
Yeah, so it'd be a year out then
This
at
year.
least. But we could check to see if it's a year renewal or if it's a 2-year renewal. I was thinking it was yearly, but maybe it is 2 year.
It's
So
more than
I'll
a
check.
year.
It's
Oh,
what,
thank
Dan?
It's more than a year, I don't know. if
Okay,
it's
it is more than a year.
five,
Okay.
but-
It's 2 years?
I think
Okay,
it's 2 years.
we'll verify that, Tito.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
And I'd just add that I'm not sure that there's any kind of legal provision we can give them necessarily that any other council can't overturn, but it certainly would not be in our best interest in any way, shape, or form to jeopardize Union City, Ohio's water supply. We're basically partners in this, regardless of what anybody thinks, and it's anything bad that happens to UCO
We feel-
is a bad reflection on us, and it is damaging to us. So I can't imagine that we'd ever want to do that. So I think I think it's a good partnership and a good deal providing that with the populations, and to keep the cost reasonable for the homeowner.
Absolutely.
So I don't think that, you know, it's like I say, it's hard to put anything in writing to make that assurance, but I can't see a scenario where we would ever want to do anything like that.
But yeah, we would definitely review it.
Good, thanks so much.
Thank you, Tito.
Third point. Did Jane-
It's 5 years, and we signed it in 2018.
2018.
And
So
but-
it's
but
So it does
also
expire
say-
next year.
Also say thank you, Tito, for bringing that up, because this is something that does come up in the public discussion from time to time that doesn't necessarily make it to us. But I'm glad you brought it up and bring it to light so that we can address it.
Gotcha. That must have been what we thought we approved then, or why we thought we.
Didn't we, was it maybe an increase?
It was an increase.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Okay, that's what it was. But it can't be increased more than 2%
Can't be
each
increased
year.
more than 2%.
Right.
Okay. And what's number 3?
3 is chickens. I know we're not allowed to have livestock on property in town, but apparently a local resident city had been sued for that, and that people are now allowed to keep chickens. Do we know anything about that? Is that maybe just a rumor? Just ask
I'll have to
people.
check with Ryan. I know nothing.
To the best of my knowledge, that's a rumor. We have an ordinance, I just looked up the animal ordinance for, another issue that we're working on, and that is specifically outlines chickens as not being allowed in the city limits.
No chickens. No live chickens allowed on your property.
Turkeys, ducks,
Exactly. There's a
Geese.
question.
cows.
There's a question here.
In the house next door to me, at one point, they had chickens, but they also had a rooster. And when, I think you helped me, Mr. Tim, get rid of the rooster, but they could keep the chickens.
Yeah.
Because they were providing, because they kept the chickens.
Was that previous to our passing that ordinance, though? That
I
ordinance
don't
isn't
know.
very old.
I
can't remember I don't remember how long ago that was, do you?
It was before my pass, so it's
Okay,
been
well,
several years.
Yeah.
So I have not been keeping up, so I'm sorry if I don't know if you passed something new.
Yeah,
But
no,
it
that's
was
fine.
the rooster and they were training it to fight, and that was the problem.
They're not allowed, I got the ordinance literally back there in the conference room on my desk, so they're not allowed in the city.
Even
Well,
chickens, they don't
those-
put
But that's not a very old
People
ordinance.
are not living in that house now.
Okay.
Good. Anything else, Tito?
Yeah,
That's all.
Okay. Tim?
I don't have anything.
Bob?
I don't have anything.
Brandon?
Actually, I have several things. 534 West Pearl Street. Steve, I brought an issue up with the gas line being dug up at that property maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago. It looks like the gas company or a representative from the gas company has been out to actually address the yard that was tore up, but there is actually still a large hole, and it looks like when the gas company had dug up that area, it actually disrupted what looks to be like the water shutoff that was encapsulated there, and it looks like it's a 24 to 30 inch hole that's still remained there that has not been addressed, and I'm not sure at this point.
Which house is that?
534.
534 West Pearl.
Is it the one on the corner, or?
It's the yellow house next to the quadplex that burned on Pearl Street.
Okay. Brandon, I'm gonna have to refresh my memory on that, but I'll look at that first thing in the morning and
Yeah, I
we'll
think
address
a
it.
representative from the gas company was out, but they didn't address the full problem. And I
Okay.
think I don't know at this point if it's something that's been disrupting, that has disrupted the water shut off there, that now that somebody from the city needs to take a look at, but they're concerned because it looks like it's a clay tile that has a very sharp point on it too, so if like somebody were to fall in it, I mean, they could, really tear up their leg or something, so.
We will address that first thing in the morning.
There's actually a cone there, over top of it, so I mean, it's pretty easy to find.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you for taking care of that. And then, in discussion with, when following up with those residents, they had asked about the quadplex next to it that burnt. The last update I had on that one was that we were looking for an emergency condemnation on it. I'm not sure what the status of it of there is, but the tenants there at 534, they're indicating that the owner of that quadplex is actually listing the property for sale that burnt, and it sounds like they're actually getting people there under false pretenses, not basically fully disclosing all issues with the property. Listing it for like $22,000, and there's a hole in the roof. The individuals at 534, they're concerned with winter approach, fall and winter approaching, that they're going to have squatters in the property. The actual owner is not mowing the grass. The owner behind the property is actually mowing the grass when it's needed.
Brandon, I'm sorry, what's the address of it again?
I think it's 538 West.
It's the house on the corner.
It's the one on the corner.
Yeah, that burnt back in the spring.
Brandon, on that property, I'm gonna have to talk to Jamie, but I know Jamie is working on the condemnation for that property.
Okay, good.
The house has actually changed hands twice, from its original owner. When it was, on fire, the new owners are the ones who actually showed up, and they had never met with Jamie, until the date of the fire. And there was some question on the court documents as to whether or not everything was filed and that they were actually the owner. So before I say anything, let me talk to Jamie, because I'm not exactly clear where that condemnation's at, but I know that it's being worked on.
Okay, all right. I appreciate it, and I think others in that area will appreciate it too, in progress. on
Yeah,
that.
unfortunately, that house is in a state at this point that it's just going to have to come down.
Yeah, I agree, and I think others do as well, so thank you. And then 4 weeks ago, the last meeting I was at, I announced that, there was a special meeting for Randolph County United where, there was some speculation that we may be getting an announcement of who the next CEO search is. The conclusion of the CEO search, unfortunately, that wasn't the case. It looks like we may be looking towards getting, filling it as an interim position while we continue to search for a new CEO as CN has moved into her new position. It's still kind of ongoing, so just kind of an update there. I don't know if others have received a document, email as well as a paper document from Todd Rakita regarding the Johnson & Johnson opioid settlements. I don't know if anybody has had thoughts, at the county level. I see, Gary's here, county commissioner, and Chad, I'm not sure if you've had other conversations with, you know, the mayors and the county. What are we gonna do with this money?
There's
What is
a
it?
limited use of
Yeah.
it, or for it. I just today at 11 o'clock and 1 second from Jen received an email regarding the approved uses. So I will forward that to you guys, and I think that should be something that you guys marinate in for a little while, and we can discuss at the next meeting then.
Yeah, I went out and looked because there's a link on the Attorney General's website of the funds that we're gonna get, and it's like over 18 years. I mean, it's not a whole lot of money.
It's not very
honestly.
much, yeah.
It's only
But-
it looks like 200, if I'm reading it correctly, it looks like it's $237,233 that we're gonna get. Total, you know, from the county as well as all local municipalities, it looks like it's just over $2 million. I mean, my initial thought is, you know, something along the lines of a drug treatment facility, but I don't even think that amount of money would, you know, go that far.
That's the concern that Jan and I talked about today. You know, where it's spread out over so many years, and then the overall gross dollar amount is not substantial enough that, you know, if we threw money at a drug problem or we commit to that, what happens in the period of time when it can no longer be sustained
Right.
through a funding source? Then you're kind of leaving those people out to dry at the same time. So I think you guys have a lot of work to do, and I think there's lots of conversations that's going to have to be had, because you're right, it's not enough money. And there appears at this point to be a timeline that it'll run out.
Yeah.
So at that point, that's a little concerning to me, because when you go to create a new program or invest in something, you don't want it to become unfunded at some point in time, even if it is 18 years down the road.
Right.
It's still going to run out.
That was just sent to everyone.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah. So
Oh,
the meeting where sorry, was there a
yeah,
question?
no.
Yes, if that funding doesn't have a true home, there's Brianna's Hope that's here in our town that helps people,
Yeah,
and
that's
that would be
fine.
a place that the money would extend its life,
That's
and
what I was
yet
thinking.
it would be controlled.
I think it's
Just wrote that
an
down.
existing
Did
program.
you?
That was my
Thank you.
thought. I didn't have a name to throw at it, but thank you. I was thinking the same thing, an existing program that we could enhance
Augment, yeah.
and augment,
Yep.
but,
Well, good. Okay. Yeah.
and of course, at that point, maybe, like Steve says, you worry about 18 years from now that funding stops. One of the things to think about is to maybe even try to come up with a plan to perpetuate
Sustain,
that
yeah.
or some other source you've got 18 years to figure out how to perpetuate that.
Good point.
But we need to look at that, yeah.
Absolutely. Anything else, Brandon?
So the meeting we had, where we struggled to have a conversation regarding the total patcher when we were out at the wastewater treatment facility. Did we buy that? Has that been purchased?
It has been purchased. It is on the road. They've been working with the piece of equipment for about a week, starting to address all the deficiencies in the streets and alleyways. It's not been on the street until just the last week, because we were going through some personnel changes and things like that. So it's got a full load of emulsion and grit, and they're starting to work with the equipment.
Perfect. I had a neighbor. I seen some comments from a neighbor. Short Street. It's kind of an alleyway, but it is a short street. It's in bad shape.
And
we would like to see maybe that be one of the first ones that gets a look at.
If we can start acquiring a list of some really bad pothole areas that residents would like to report, feel free to give me a call here at the city building. If I'm not in the building, please just leave me a message and we'll get it to the appropriate people. But keep in mind, normally we worked with this piece of equipment over the course of 7-8 months. you know, we're getting a late start, but the nice thing moving forward is it's our piece of equipment and we're going to be able to be using it literally year round now. So we will get everything addressed. That is the goal, but we have to do it with what manpower shortages and everything allow as well. So
That's great to hear.
So Steve, we can even do that in the winter time then, or just?
I mean, the temperature's gotta be right, but yeah, they
Could
can work
possibly-
later, they can work a little bit later and start a little bit earlier in the spring when it's our piece of equipment, so.
Okay.
The issue is we've literally gone, almost a year with no work being done because we've not been successful at borrowing the county's piece of equipment, so now that it's ours, now it's up to us to follow through and use it, so.
Okay.
And I know they've been out last week, and I know they've got plans to be out this week.
Great.
I had one other item, one final one. So Turf Tank, have they been in town to like stripe the fields yet, or?
I know that Mr. Black has their contact number for their rep that will be doing the work until ours comes in. I do not know if they've been in town yet, but they'll be in town before the first game, and the first time they'll be on the field. I know that they're going to take care of striping the field.
Well, the reason I ask is that soccer games actually begin this Saturday.
Okay.
We were gonna use it for soccer as well.
Correct. And he knows that. I'll have to touch base with Mr. Black to see exactly what they worked out schedule-wise.
Okay.
The,
Cause Jeanette Uloa, she knew nothing about Turf Tank and that we were, doing anything with it, so, she said she hadn't had a conversation with me.
yeah, I just haven't talked to her, and once we get the new fields built, they're just going to be maintained by the school and the
Sure.
city anyway, so.
Okay.
That's just gonna be a burden that they won't have to deal with moving forward. And our robot is, we're working on the midfield logo for the football field. Once I get that in the right format and sent to them, then they can finish basically building our robot with all the programming and everything that they need. So, hopefully that's done by the end of the week, and then our robot will be on its way.
Great. How about conversations with other communities? I know you mentioned like Miss-Senawa, kind of a reciprocity agreement where they, gonna pay to use it, but.
It would be our belief that they would be interested in participating in that. I don't know if Chad's had a meeting with their superintendent yet. I have not.
Yeah, no, I'm trying Jeff Winchester.
Yeah, so.
Yep, we have talked, but we haven't met live yet, because we're wanting to meet. I want to not only discuss that, but also Vision Corner with him, so.
But yes, Aaron and I have talked about using it at other locations and things like that. Their school program, their kids are already excited about it. I know Alec has shown some enthusiasm about having a robot, and I know those classes at school are going to dive into that pretty aggressively.
I know I said Turf Tank was my last thing, but you just mentioned Vision Corner and the windows down there. The windows are just went in and on Vision Corner in one of the sections there, and it looks awesome. I don't know if anybody's been down there through it yet, but
The doorway.
yeah.
Yeah, by the end of the week, all of them will be in. They're going to demo a cell each day this week and install the new fronts. So by Friday, they should all be done.
Nice.
Great.
It's exciting.
That's it.
No, you're good. No old business, so new business, we have ordinance number 2022-11, which is the salary ordinance in the first reading. Jen, did you want to add anything to this for?
Well, you want to do it, Steve, or you want me to do it?
I can do it.
Go ahead.
So, what we're asking, at present time, we have not replaced, one of our public works employees that left employment. So we have his pay setting there, and because of the, unbelievable inflation, the unbelievable increased cost for our workforce to buy bare necessities, we would like to basically change the salary ordinance, make a modification, and split his pay up amongst the rest of our public works department to make things a little bit easier on their families and our workforce. So that's the reason for this amendment in a nutshell.
Question, so it's just sort of doling out the salary of an employee
That individual is being paid roughly 17 and some change, and I think we're going to look at giving our remaining employees roughly, depending on what position they have, somewhere between 50 cents and $1 an hour raise. I haven't looked at what Jan's put in front of you, so that's my
It's
fault.
$1,
It's $1?
Don.
So it's $1 an hour. pay
except
raise.
for the
Part-time?
part-time's also $1, but it's the supervisors is more.
Yeah, the supervisors, my percentage was a little bit more.
Yeah.
And keeping in mind that there's still some savings, because that's just the salary.
Right.
Yeah, you're not paying the
side.
benefits.
You're not paying
Benefits.
the benefits that.
And it's not all, still doesn't add up to 7%.
Still doesn't add up.
There's still some left.
So there's no other increase beyond the redistributed salaries?
It's just redistributing one employee's salary is what we're
So
saying.
do we still need the function of that role?
We do, because they're, by their job description, by their line items, we need to change those rates. So that's literally what we have to do.
You mean the person that
No.
left?
Yeah, the person who left, the role that person played.
That has been redistributed.
Yeah, it's
as far
just
as
been
the work.
redistributed amongst other workers.
I
That's
think what you're,
therefore they-
what you're saying is, do we need to
The
replace that
task
person?
that would be
Yeah.
done by that person,
Yeah.
can they be adequately covered by the group that's left
Yeah.
behind,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
They can at present. We're probably going to be stretching some of the task out a little bit, meaning, and I apologize for this, we've had some high winds of late. Because we are one person short, it took us more than one day to pick up all the brush and the down trees and the limbs. But just rest assured, we felt that this was the best path forward presently to specifically help our employees and our workforce take care of their families.
Question, does the proposed increases, is that the same percentage increase for everybody?
We just decided to use $1 an hour is what, and then I think Brad and Rob got it.
Brad and Ron might be, it's $1.50.
Yeah, it's $1.50 an hour.
In the proposed ordinance in our packet, some of the salaries are highlighted in yellow. What does that mean?
Those are the ones that changed.
Yeah, all the titles, job titles in our ordinance are not necessarily filled with somebody earning that pay line.
That's the one that's eliminated.
So if this is the one, I'm sorry, if this is the one that's eliminated or that's no longer there and it's not redistributed, why do we keep him in the ordinance? Why are we keeping this position in the ordinance?
Because at some point in time, and Jan and I are gonna go through and kind of refresh the salary ordinance for 2023, we just haven't got that far yet. Currently, there's positions in there because it gives our workforce the ability to move people around based on what their primary focus during the day would be. At some point in time, we may need to move somebody up to that assistant role. So I don't know that it will ever go away out of the salary ordinance, but just because it's in there, it doesn't mean that we're paying it to somebody.
So the salaries that are proposed to be increased, are those ones that would be assuming some of the
Correct.
responsibilities of the
Correct.
individual? Okay. Okay.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
If you would state your name so people know who,
Jeannie Collins,
and address,
336 South Columbia.
thank you.
If down the road, you need that position filled and we have upped the ante here, which I'm not saying that they don't deserve a raise. raise, I'm not saying that at all. But will the city be able to afford a new person to come along if the workload gets to where the other people can't do it?
We really, and Chad and I and Jan and I and the line supervisors have discussed these things to nauseam, really. You know, Union City's sitting here in a situation that we have to take care of the personnel that we have. It's way too hard to train, it's way too hard to get licensing and certifications for our workforce. We have to protect and keep what we have. We do realize, however, that at some point in time, we can't continue to keep doing what we've been doing when our workforce is literally shrinking. It's shrinking at the police department, it's shrinking at the fire department, it's shrinking in the public works departments. But the only way that we're going to be able to grow is to increase our tax base through new homes, through new industry, through, you know, more development in the industrial park. And we are working countless number of extra hours week in and week out to address all of those things. So the only way we can add workforce literally is to increase our tax base. And we have implemented so many processes to help facilitate that process, which should in theory help grow our tax base. But right now we don't see, we don't have a crystal ball to know when or what the timeline is for that process. We just know that we have to grow, and growing is a painful process. That's where we're at now. We're having lots and lots of growing pains.
And just to clarify, when he says raises tax base, it doesn't mean raise taxes.
It's not raising your taxes.
I understand
Okay.
that, but what I was thinking in my head was, okay, now you can do without that person and absorb that work. But when Union City grows, or when things, and now we need that extra person, can Union City afford to pay that extra person when that happens?
We believe the answer to that question is yes. If everything falls into place, we grow, we add 62 homes to our community. Those 62 homes are paying property taxes. We add industry, we grow the industrial park, we add jobs, we do all those things, then yes, we believe that in a couple years, we should be able to add somebody to our workforce.
Okay, I wasn't trying to be snotty or
No,
anything.
that's a great question.
Can I be
and
heard?
yes.
We have an exceptionally good workforce. Our people work for very low wages, and we're very lucky to have them, and I strongly urge you to pass this. And I pay as much taxes as anybody around here, and this is the best use of tax dollars I can think of. And like Steve said, we're gonna grow this tax base. And when the time comes we have to fill this spot again, the money will be there. Either that or we'll dry it and blow away. But we can't keep going backwards. And it's up to you guys to see to it that we continue this forward motion. And you know, our people are, from the cops to the guys out here driving the street sweeper, they're just not paid that well. And we're just very lucky to have the quality people we've got. So don't begrudge them $1 an hour raise.
And please understand, I'm not a proponent of raising taxes at all. That's not what increasing our tax base means. Increasing our tax base is more development, more growth, more properties that are being assessed taxes grows our tax base. So
Thank you.
That's where it's gonna have to come from, yeah. To answer your question on that, yeah.
No, but good question.
Yeah.
Any other questions from council? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to accept ordinance 2022-11, salary ordinance by the first reading by title, or in the first reading by title only.
We have a first, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Jan, if you would, roll call vote.
Brandon Elmore,
Yes.
Bob Leahy.
Yes.
Tito Frias,
Yes.
Tim Heiss.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2022-10, ordinance to amend chapter 97, which is the junk boats and vehicles, etc. You should have a copy of this in your packet. We've been discussing, this has been kind of on the perimeter for a while now. What questions do you guys have? What do you see? Anything that raise any concern or questions?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually had quite a bit of concern expressed by residents of Union City, Indiana. Some of them go along the following line. So as long as a person, as a homeowner or renter or whatever, is keeping their property clean, and they don't have parts all over their yard or whatever, it shouldn't matter if their vehicles are in running condition or not, right? I mean, they're just concerned that, oh, wait a minute, so I'm not allowed to fix my car and take the motor out, and what if that takes more than a week, that people are just really concerned that, oh my, all of a sudden, they're not even allowed to fix their own car on their own property.
Yeah, that's
And
definitely
people are
not the
like,
spirit of this. Which, and the one thing to that point, I'm sorry, Tim, was you saying something?
No, all I was gonna point out is that when it comes to vehicles, one of the first things is if it's on your property, generally, if it's registered, it's not gonna be if it's in a more or less assembled manner and it's registered, not completely derelict, it's, it's
the
legal.
license plate.
Yeah, license plate and so forth. So, that of course, obviously, there's some room for nuisance complaints if there's, oil all over the place, if there's, any hazardous condition and so forth that has detrimental effect to somebody else's property, but generally, the vehicles that we deal with that violate this ordinance and this type of ordinance, basically we've had a loophole where boats and some trailers didn't fall in the description. The description was too precise in terms of addressing cars,
Right.
that it didn't address these other type of vehicles. But generally the vehicles that address, usually if they're sitting there and they've been derelict for a long period of time or any period of time, they generally aren't registered, and that's where the restriction is. Now, that's a little tighter on the street. On the street, if it's actually on the street, it needs to be an operable vehicle. But in terms of in the property, if it's a registered vehicle, generally that's not gonna be a problem.
So this is also my understanding of it. I mean, and this is how I've explained it to people, even offline, right? I haven't put it in writing, and so if I say something that's not correct, please jump in. First of all, if the vehicle inoperable, the one that's not working or the one that you're taking apart or whatever, is in an enclosed space in a garage, for example, that
doesn't
this
apply.
ordinance does not
Right.
apply.
No.
So if it's out of view, you're good,
Yeah.
okay?
Right, if it's behind a
Um,
fence, right? I mean, even if it's
Well-
behind a fence, an enclosed area.
Right.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
It's
within reason.
not visible.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
visible.
I think the location is very important.
Yeah.
If it's sitting out
Because
in
I think
driveway.
part of the concept behind that, if it's not visible, if it's enclosed, it's not able to draw the vermin that is listed in the ordinance, that is a concern.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's actually written into the language of the ordinance. The other thing one that's not really written into the ordinance is that, let's say I have my home, I have a car in the driveway, and a garage. I am taking the motor out. I maybe don't want the motor to get wet or anything. I put it in the garage. I can't put both. Maybe I can't fit both of them into the garage. The car is now technically inoperable, and I continue working on it. I don't have a lot of money, so I can't do everything right away. It might take a few weeks. I think the ordinance is still okay. There's not an issue yet. I think the issue happens when the vehicle is been there for a long time, it's fallen apart, you see cats and raccoons and squirrels and other things, you know, setting up shop. And maybe a complaint. For that to happen, it takes several weeks. Like what I'm saying is you have, the ordinance is not gonna come down boom, like 7 days after you've started working on your car. It's really only going to happen when there is a complaint or the car has obviously been there for a long time, it's fallen apart, and animals are taking residence. So I think that should be enough, I think, to quell most, hopefully all concerns. Do we agree?
I agree, because I know of only one thing in the entire community, to my knowledge, that's in violation of this right now. So, that's the only, that's
And
all, and that's what.
I actually had a discussion with the ordinance officer today about this subject, and we have discussing a couple of things, and we will discuss this a little bit. And one of the things, he pointed out a couple of instances where he had calls to, you know, complaints on a situation like this. And like in one instance, the guy was repairing one vehicle and says, I'm repairing this vehicle first so I can get to work. And then I'm repairing this other vehicle so my mother has transportation and so on and so forth. And he said he repaired the vehicles, did what he said, they were back on the road, everything was fine. And the ordinance officer was able to use his judgment to not just go cite it.
Right.
And while we've had some type of ordinances where we've been encouraged to just go cite and just get the ball rolling on some of our minimum housing standards, these type of things, generally there's some give and take, and if somebody has a situation that they're trying to resolve, as long as they're doing it in good faith, I think they're gonna find that the leeway's given. In the case that you're talking about, there's been an attempt, and there's been no interest in resolution of that.
Right.
So yeah, so I think answers most questions. If there's something else, you know, I'd love to hear them. But yeah, it's not just immediately gonna come down.
Yeah.
Do what you have to do. You know, maybe as quickly as you can. But even if it's not as quickly as you can, just don't let it go on for too long, such that animals come in. You know, keep it clean, whatever. Do what you can, and we'll work things out. Two other points that I have about this is there was a question about under point number 9, under the definition of junk or inoperable vehicle. Okay. If you look at that point, the way that it's worded, the way I'm reading it, you know, the English grammar there, is that any motor vehicle, operable or inoperable, should not be left uncovered for more than 5 days. So does it become an inoperable vehicle only if it's left
Well, it
uncovered?
says which is discarded, wrecked, ruined, scrapped, or dismantled, and does not have a valid license. So I think that,
Or,
doesn't that?
well, the thing that the or is what kills
Oh,
it.
on the last or.
Yeah.
Or is left.
But I think that's when it becomes an issue with the vermin, if it's uncovered. There's a place for squirrels or, you know, rats or whatever, coons to get in there, and if it's left uncovered,
Well, yeah, but I mean, is if it's an operable vehicle?
Yeah, so what does that mean exactly? Is it somebody that just used their boat last Monday, and today's the following Monday, it's been 7 days, and it's, you know, nice boat, they went boating, they parked it in the drive, and they're gonna go this coming weekend.
right.
Does that set them up, does this language look like it sets them up for? And obviously they wouldn't be cited, but you're just trying to
Yeah.
clean up the language, right?
Well, that's a concern, right? People are they're afraid of government taking over their property.
Yeah, and that's not the intent of this. Well, but if it was left and it changes the sentence, doesn't it? Whether it's motorized or not, if it's discarded, wrecked, ruined, scrapped, or dismantled, does not have a valid license, and is left uncovered in the open on private property more than 5 days, that changes the whole meaning of the sentence, doesn't it? Correct?
Yes.
Does the or need to be changed to and?
Well, I think
I-
that or goes
That would,
with that.
that would
part.
soften it, that would make it. I
What's
think,
that, Jan?
reasonable.
I think that or goes with that, you're talking about both motorized or unmotorized, which is discarded, wrecked, ruined, scrapped, or
Right.
dismantled. And then and does not have a valid license, or, so it either doesn't have a valid license or it's left
Yeah,
uncovered.
the or is
But
for
it's
the-
Oh, it's
discarded,
referring to the
wrecked,
license.
So they're talking about any discarded, wrecked, ruined, scrapped, or dismantled. So if someone took a boat out for the weekend and bring it home and put it there, it's not discarded, wrecked, ruined, scrapped,
Because it has a
or
license
dismantled.
too.
Right.
Okay. Maybe they need to scrap the comma.
Yeah, I don't know. This was taken from somewhere else, so they,
Right.
somebody
We might
else.
wanna have Ryan take a look at that and make sure
Yeah,
that that's.
yeah, Ryan, let me-
Or throw out that last
Well,
subclause.
So have Ryan look at 9 and then bring this back up for possible vote?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Have a look at them.
we can do that.
that's-
Procedure, Union City Council meetings, citizen comments.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
One more question. Someone asked, would it be possible to include in this furniture, widescreen TVs, and other art items like that that people leave on sidewalks and alleyways?
But that wouldn't be for this section, cause this is vehicles.
We should
But-
have that covered.
We already have
That
that
should
in
be
the
covered
ordinance.
someplace.
We have another ordinance for that?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But good question.
But yeah, that's,
Any others?
That's all.
So yes, look for this in the next one, then we'll get with Ryan on that. The Union City Council, I mean, this is all designed to basically ensure that communication process is taking place as fully vetted as thoroughly as possible. Is this something, and we already have a site through the website to be able to access as well. Upon your review, is that something you felt needs to be enacted? Or not? Brandon, you had a question look on your face.
What are we looking at? I'm sorry. What?
The third item on the new business,
Oh, the procedure.
correct. And that would be the last, I think it's the last 2 sheets in the packet, isn't it?
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The objective is to assure that the public's right to be heard is honored, to assure that council meetings can be conducted civilly and constructively, and to assure that important issues are addressed systematically and transparently. The guiding principles is it's fundamental to American government that there is a citizen right to be heard. It is fundamental that matters of importance are fully understood by decision makers, and that time is available for due deliberation of issues that may involve follow-up action. So then it lists provision for citizen input not related to formal agenda items, and then lists an action request route in which council or mayor or department heads or city manager would seek, would follow personally to seek clarification.
Maybe go ahead and read I mean, it's not that long, just go ahead and
Okay.
read the whole thing.
Sure. The provision is each council meeting agenda will include a period for citizen comments, which we already do that. Citizens may request an opportunity to speak in one of 2 ways. Pre-register by completing the online form, Union City Council Citizens Comments available at the website, or arrive early at the council meeting, and which generally is the case, and complete the paper version of the form, which is Union City Citizens Comments, available on the back of this page, which you have on as the last part of your packet. The council president, Brandon, will invite each speaker to address council from the designated podium with a time limit of 3 minutes. At conclusion of presentation, the council president will ask the citizen speaker whether there will be a request for follow-up investigation, deliberation, and potential action. If affirmative, the citizen speaker will complete within 3 business days the online form, Union City Citizen Action Request, which is accessed on the website. The council president, mayor, or department heads will follow up personally to seek clarification and begin active investigation and deliberation as needed. The basis of any decision will be reported to the engaged citizen. And then the last form is for them to cite their objective.
In a way, it seems a little more restrictive because in general in the past we've liked everybody to, speak, and we generally exceed the thing. When, these kinds of rules happen when there is an abuse or, something that's sort of uncalled for and goes way too long. So this is, in a way that's it's good to have this kind of stricture. What I love about this is that you say your 3 minutes and then there's a system for follow-up, documented follow-up. The individual who spoke is asked formally if their concern has been responded to. And then there's actually a system for follow-up and investigation. I love that because that's the accountability part. That's the responsiveness to citizen concerns. I vote for this.
Yeah, thank you, Tito. I was actually not at the last meeting. I was planning on being out of town for vacation, but I ended up coming down with COVID. Was actually traveled for the first time for work in 2.5 years, and there were about 40 of us in place. And about 15 of us went home sick. So I had the interesting point of view of not being up here, but actually watching the meeting online, and had kind of that vantage point. And the tone of the meeting was definitely different than tonight's meeting. And we enacted the 3 minutes that we're going to put up on the board here. That's something we've always done. That's always been part of the agenda. We just haven't always enforced it like we probably should have. And it's not an issue where we want to cut people short, but the true purpose of the council meeting is to conduct business that needs to come before the council. A part of that is hearing citizens' concerns, and we don't have to necessarily do that, but it's very wise of us to do that because we want to hear from the public. We need to do that in a concise way because there may be multiple people that need to be heard. So I think when we have a meeting like this, we make some changes that some people may think that that's something new, but it really isn't. It's something that we've always had in place. So when it's your turn to speak, please go to the podium. You'll get your 3 minutes. If you're making a statement, we may not have a response. If you have a question, we'll try to answer and have a dialogue, because that's one thing that I noticed from last meeting. There wasn't much dialogue, and I think there was some changes that were kind of put in place, and people weren't for sure how to kind of navigate those changes, that type of thing. But we want to continue to have the dialogue with our citizens if we can. And it may be a situation too where we might not have a response to a question immediately, or we may not, if you kind of goes down a rabbit hole where whatever is said may not dignify a response. So that may be the case where a response is not may not happen. So we just wanted to kind of make that clear, I think, before we move on from this topic here. So thank you for your comments too, Tino. That was very good. I appreciate that as well.
Well, any other comments or questions? If not,
I'll just point out that 3-minute rule that we've been informal with has been in place for a good 10 years.
So
and one of the reasons that was enacted was to not just to restrict the people that were speaking, was to not restrict the people that weren't the ones speaking at that given time. That sometimes if you could have a room full of people and there were people that wanted to speak, and I know there were a couple times we had meetings where somebody kind of filibustered, and we had people that said, wow, I really wanted to get up and speak, but they took all this time and I didn't want to hold this meeting up any longer. I'm like, well, that's not good. Right. So I think to be fair and to give everybody their voice, that we need to have a formal policy like this that can be worked with.
Only thing is that if there is like a debate or something, it's like signing up online and signing up before the meeting may not be flexible enough. If someone says something and then someone else from the public has a response.
Well,
ideally, anybody responding, it would be the council.
Yeah, the council's not, the meeting's not set up for debate amongst
among
person, yeah.
And also, the one thing that I like to go keep it brief from the standpoint of sometimes some of the information that someone gives isn't just exactly accurate.
Right.
And so the responses need to be well informed and from a completely informed position where if somebody says, has a problem and says they have a problem, then you try to address it. Well, then you come find later that their problem was something completely different than what they were stating, or they were either misstating or misrepresenting what was going on. Then you spend this long protracted discussion that turns out wasn't, that does more damage than good.
Right.
So,
Well, based on your comments, I would open it up for a motion then.
I will move we adopt the procedures for the Union City Council meetings on citizen comments as presented.
We have a first.
Point of order, is this like a resolution?
No, it's really, and really we could do a consensus vote. It's really just, we thought it was prudent to get the council's buy-in that this was a
Adopting our rules.
logical,
Okay.
yeah.
It's not an ordinance.
It doesn't have to be an ordinance or resolution per se, it's just
Okay.
a matter of procedure.
Okay.
So, no, good question.
Yeah, that's fair.
So,
So I can second it.
okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All right. Now, they have been extremely patient and very pleasant. I will.
They're still smiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Smart
that's
one.
not all.
Oh, yeah, seeing, oh, you're right, I'm so sorry, we do have one more thing. I'm pulling a Brandon, I'm sorry. Steve would.
You can let them go.
Okay, let them go, okay.
Let the people go.
Let the people.
Okay, well, real quickly, this might take more than 3 minutes, but you can shut us off. So, we were asked, we are part of Randolph County United, and some of you, of course, have been involved in the original meetings. Ball State has been doing a study of Randolph County, if you're not aware of it, for over 3 years, and their intent was to analyze what we have as strengths in the community, areas that need to have attention. And so in Ball State's analysis before we ever began to meet in committees was to look over what we have, what we don't have, what we anticipate we need, and that's on multiple levels: housing, education, industry, business operations, etc. So once we had a format, then there were people invited from every aspect of the county to come to those meetings, and in most of the meetings, I know that Marla and I talked about the fact we attended 6 meetings at least of this large gathering, and it was almost 150 people or more sometimes. We were all divided into subcommittees after this had been discussed to address some of the issues that they came up with. One of the main points that Ball State wanted to put forth for all of us who were assembled in those groups was that that the county, Randolph County, does not sell itself in terms of what it actually has available. So the committee that Marla and I served on was Parks and Recreation, and what we were to examine, we took on, we as a committee then subdivided how we'd analyze what we wanted to say about what was available in our county. So first of all, we looked at Parks and Recreation. As a result of that, each group of us from the committee, this subcommittee in our own region or area or town, was to go back and write up what's there, how it's used, what's available at those locations. So parks were our first focus, and that's what we're going to talk about now.
we came up with this handy dandy little, parks brochure that lists every park in Randolph County. It's, the point was to make it user-friendly to, once we wanna distribute it to child care centers, just to get the word out to parents in the community what's available. So we have, this is our product, and then we are hoping to build on this to have, signage at all these parks with, with a code, the QR code, so people can put their phones up there and see what's available at the different parks and any kinds of activities that are going on. That's the next step, is to get the QR code going. This was our first publication. We are, working on improvements for next time around, distributing these first, and then we'll see what happens once we get these out and around. The other thing that happened at the 4-H fair, we have a mascot for the parks in Randolph County called Randy Raccoon. You were talking about the vermin in cars. This guy was proud of.
We love them
But
in the woods.
This got a lot of excitement at the Randolph County Fair. They were giving these out to the kids, and it created a lot of interest. I was gonna have one for each of us to wear, but these are not very big heads. So I gave up on that, but so anyway.
If you'd like to have one too,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that you can show that we brought them, if anybody'd like to see them. And the intent was, as Marla said, to have something that attracts kids to the parks, because for the most part, that's who's using them. Either through organized activities or.
She has 3 babies. That baby, that last one needs to stay. No.
Well, you can expand it.
I put that together,
Marla, I have one for Jason, since
Sure.
he's out here.
Jason, or Jason needs one.
This is awesome.
Jason.
This is so cool.
He's in there.
Right here.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm out of these, so.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Steve might share his.
We'll take a couple back or whatever. So, in order to come up with this brochure, I kind of, we're not gonna take time for you to go through these, but, so Marla did baseball, diamonds, and I did the, Artisan Crossing, Art Park. And what we wanted to do in this brochure, which you can take home and look through it, we wanted people to know what all is available at each one of those parks, and not just that, but how do you utilize it if you want to. So for instance, our shelter houses and costs and who do you contact and all those sorts of things. So we tried to be as thorough as we could. The next issue, though, that they pointed out to us is that we need to invest in signage to bring people into town, because we also discovered through Ball State's background for us that there are people that drive around looking for parks, not just in this area, but they come to an area because they've seen it online or they've heard something about it, and so they want to know where is it, how far is it, what county road, what. So the maps are also indicated in there. That was another thing we did, but the signage is the next phase that we're working on. We need something on 36, we need something on 47, we need something on 32, we need something on 28 that points out just what we have, and the same is true for all of the other parks. It was
Especially here for the
Yeah.
community Christmas, you know, it'd be nice to have a park better designated. to
all
make
over
Christmas
that area
traffic.
where people are driving in from. And the other thing is, what we found out, even within our own committee, there were some of our committee that had no idea the number of parks there were, and Spartansburg Park is a very popular one to go to. They had never heard of it. They said, why would we go there?
Oh.
So that's the point of.
Find our teas and water.
Yes,
Right.
exactly, that's what, yeah.
Exactly. So now we have done that phase of the work, and now it's up to the communities to come up with the promotion of not only the brochures, but also the promotion of signage that we think is appropriate. So I did print off for all of you, and I'll leave that for you to look at later, but the contact at the state level, they have designated signs that they will put up on the highways upon request from the cities or the whoever is responsible for that. So that'd be like a part two that now gets shifted back to MoDOT, Spartanburg, Ridgeville, and all these different places. We also found out what was the launch pad that we had no idea at all for the canoers and.
Oh, I was just gonna say, for the future, there are kind of three tangents and other subcommittees that are working on a kayaking,
Kayaking.
launch pad, either in Ridgeville or, they're exploring all of that, and also bike paths. And one of the things our committee's going to do, and I think tourism is gonna help pay for this, is become a member of a Parks Association that allows you to find out about grants that you can apply for and to help pay for some of the stuff that we need. So there are lots of ideas. One of the Ball State guys is coming back to our meeting next Thursday to help us get direction, because we've got lots of ideas and lots of excitement, and it's like, okay, we need to get focused here and figure out where we're going with all this. So anyway, it's pretty exciting, really.
And our part two that we're now working on are points of interest. That's why I passed that out to you. So that's one that I've put together, and we've put them together for 2 or 3 other sites. I want to pick up on the Race Museum on the Ohio side. So that's our next move, and we hope we'll have a brochure that comes out like that for points of interest throughout the entire county. So, any questions, anyone?
You gonna include somewhere in there the old border of the United States and the Indian territories
That
as a point of interest?
Those are points of interest. We don't have those designated, but that's why we're doing this kind of work. Yeah.
I would say another good selling point about our park is the disc golf course. That really brings some people in.
Oh, yeah, you see people out there from all over.
Right.
Yeah.
And a
that's
lot of people don't know about it.
That's not listed, is it?
No.
Yeah. Well, you've got sports activities listed.
Yeah,
but it's not specific on that. I would say that's probably the information that's gonna be in your QR code.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
and then on the website also.
And, yeah, where you have more.
And if you go to Randolph County United, there's a link to
Perfect.
this, so.
I think this is fantastic.
Yeah.
You
One
guys
of
did a
the-
very nice job.
One of the moms, took her kids, like, they did this park, sort of.
Yeah,
They went to each one of these
they
parks.
toured all of them.
And they talked about what they liked about each park, and,
Nice.
it was just really cool, and she checked them off and, as they did them, and.
They, as a result of the brochure, they decided that was gonna
That's
be
what
an
she-
activity.
yeah,
And then we've had another.
Park hop, that's
yeah,
where it is,
the
it's
park
there in
hop.
the back. Yeah.
And we've had bikers that have already picked this up, and they're doing bike tours going from one park to the next to the next. So there are a variety of ways that we can promote it. And I'm just gonna leave these here for you because this is the information from NDOT and how you acquire additional signage.
You know, when
I was informed that you
gave
have
all
one
the
of those
face- I don't have any faces left.
Oh, you don't?
Sorry.
No?
I'll get you one,
That's
I'll
fine.
get one. I'll hand deliver it to
Well, I'm
you.
sure
was
maybe
informed by
somebody
my
here
wife
will
today.
give out one of their raccoon.
Okay, you raccoon.
Randy Raccoon,
Oh,
yes.
You're gonna share, great. I do have the headband part, so.
Okay.
We got y'all fixed up.
No,
I have a new grandson that needs.
Oh, of course.
Very, very nice
Give
job.
her a headband. She is-
Oh,
Or I mean,
we've got plenty of headbands.
Very nice job. Thank you. Excellent. All right, Steve, the CCMG second round.
Yep, so, July 29th at 1 p.m. we had a bid opening for the second round funding of community crossings. The winning bid is DC Construction Services Inc. Total base price was $305,421.14. This bid did come in under budget, and I need council's approval to move forward with the second round construction process for community crossings.
So, what is gonna be constructed?
This is streets and sidewalks from Howard Street to Plum on Oak Street, so in front of Backstay Loft. The rest of the sidewalks will be finished, and the street will be ground and repaved. Then the parking lanes on North Howard Street from Division to Carter Street will be milled and paved, and there's something else, but I can't tell you. I think there's one other street that'll be fog sealed. So,
And I'm sorry I missed it. So this is a grant that we're applying for, or a
No,
grant
we've
that
already-
we've
we've
got?
already received the grant.
Aha. We're just
this
now.
is the second round of the community crossings for 2022.
When you say second round, that means we're bidding for a contractor to do.
We've already bid it, and we just opened the bids. I just need you guys to approve moving forward with the community crossings grant.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, I can't remember what the first round covered, but that was back in
The first round was the driving lanes on North Howard
That's
Street.
right, that's right.
It was 2 or 3 streets.
Union too, I think. right?
South Street, Hickory Street, those were fog sealed. Some part of the trailer park was milled and paved, part of the trailer park was fog sealed. And then everywhere where we put new asphalt down gets new ADA corners on the sidewalks.
How much did you say that was?
The winning bid was $305,421.14. And again, it came in under budget, and they were kind of surprised that it came in under budget.
No other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion for approval.
I'll move we approve the bid from DC Construction for $305,421.14 for the second round community crossings.
First, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Brandon?
Dead heat. Jan, if you would, roll call vote.
Brandon Elmore,
Yes.
Bob Leahy.
Yes.
Tim Heiss.
Yes.
Tito Frias.
Yes.
All right, visitors wishing to address the board or the council.
I'm not done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So,
Sorry.
today at 1 o'clock, we had the pre-con meeting
Oh,
for
that's right.
the blight clearance grant. So Chad will be basically executing the contract tonight to Door and Associates to demo the blighted properties in our downtown. Just as a refresher, that contract bid opening came back. It's going to be awarded to Door and Associates out of Michigan for $350,700, and they will be here. They're going to start mobilization August 15th, so they'll be here next week to start that process.
Anything else?
Now I'm done.
All right, visitors wishing to address the council, please stand, state your name, address, and nature of business.
So I need Corey to log into that computer.
on South Columbia Street, Union City. I'd like to know, and I don't expect you to tell me at this time, but I want someone to get back to me, how a house goes, and 2 houses on my block have done this, went from condemned to people living in them with no work being done. I wanna know how that happens and how we can stop it. That's all I have to say.
What are the addresses?
One's 340 and one is 3. I think 32. Don't beat me up because there's some houses missing.
South Columbia.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were condemned, and the next thing you know, people are living in them, and they're still there.
Okay. We'll follow up and we'll address that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Vanessa Sanchez. I live on 316 North High Street. I have several concerns about one of the ordinance you have not passed yet. It's proposed amendment. Correct me if I'm wrong. The highlighted section is what is being proposed to amend, correct?
Is adding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So in your inoperable definition, as you touched on, just because you state that the officer can use his own judgment to provide leeway to those who are genuinely trying to fix said vehicle, and it is not at that point a junk vehicle because it is getting fixed, does not mean that will genuinely happen. Without it being in writing, there's no telling what a different officer's judgment will be on that specific day.
Oh,
Without that being stated specifically, I'm not so sure that will genuinely happen. And the reason I am concerned is because not only my husband, but several in the community are mechanics.
Mhm.
So in your definition, in I think the 3rd section, if inoperable, it says missing parts, and it lists a number of missing parts. Once again, as Tito had said, how are they expected to fix said vehicle without taking off those parts to be fixed and not meeting that time limit? Not to mention shop wait time. A lot of times, most vehicles are not allowed to be towed to the shop's property without them having an available spot. And in most shops in this area, including Ackerman's, which is in town, it's most of the time it's a week to 2 weeks till you can get in there. So how would that work? Without that being in the actual wording of those who are in financial situations, what allowances do they have and confirmation do they have regarding those vehicles? Like I said, no offense, you can say there is leeway based on the judgment, but without it in writing, how can we be sure?
First question I have is, are these vehicles registered vehicles or, I mean,
Yes,
if,
yes, all
well,
vehicles are registered
if they're-
vehicles, but missing broken parts, missing 2 tires, all of that good stuff.
that's,
Transmission has over 800 parts, and it says
yeah,
needed
well,
partially dismantled.
I'm a mechanic myself, so yeah, but the first prerequisite is a registered vehicle, so a vehicle that's registered that's on the property isn't necessarily gonna be considered an inoperable vehicle.
Even if it's partially dismantled and there are pieces missing? For
Well,
the purpose of fixing?
One thing I would suggest, because this has got to go back to
Yeah.
Ryan anyway for number
Yeah.
9 clarification.
we'll get some clarification on that.
Would a time frame help this situation, and if so, what would be an acceptable time frame based on your experience? That, like, say you were working on a car, and say it's gonna, I've got this part and this part of 3 weeks out, and I've got, what's.
Honestly, Mr. Mayor, I do not have the best luck with vehicles
Oh.
at all in general.
I can relate to
So,
that.
almost every vehicle I've had has broke down on me and
Oh.
has needed fixed at one point, and I'm just trying to be able to be sure that my husband has the opportunity to be able to fix it
Right.
within our financial hardships, because we have 3 children.
And see, that's what we want too. And that's why I talked about earlier is the spirit of this is to not go against something of this nature, because the effort is being made there. It's not someone taking advantage and saying, I'm just going to park this jalopy out back and it's going to sit there for 6 years.
Yeah.
That's what this is trying to address.
Right.
It's not, it should not hinder someone who's trying to fix their own vehicle so they have a mode of transportation.
That's why I'm concerned about the wording.
I agree. I agree. And I still think a time frame in print, to her point, a time frame would be good, because that way it transcends different officers and administrations. So that way the next person down the road doesn't affect this situation. Does that make sense? Or
Well,
Mike?
that or my only concern with time frames is that they end. But
If you put it,
there's-
I'm sorry.
I'm just if there's language that says something like a vehicle that is being worked on, that has, active, it's actually being managed and fixed up, is not considered inoperable. That might be enough, just that clause right
We
there.
kinda covered this earlier, but what Tim was saying, if it's registered, you should be good to go. I mean, that's pretty much black and white.
Does it say that though?
Well,
No.
See, if it doesn't say that,
if
that's
it's
the
Well,
problem.
we could add that.
if it's registered, it's operable.
So,
I mean, that, if we wanted to put it in simple terms,
do we need to put in here that any vehicle that is not registered?
that might help.
Or vehicle-
License.
Yeah, registered and licensed.
But
Would that
couldn't
help?
an individual just leave
So if
their
it's
cars
just
registered each
unregistered,
year?
non-licensed vehicles that we're addressing and not,
That would help. And once again, the only reason I bring these concerns is because not only my husband, but several in your community are mechanics of their own
Oh,
vehicles.
that's
So
great.
it's very difficult to
Right.
try to do these under these time constraints.
yeah, I agree.
And as for time constraints of you trying to time it out, I couldn't possibly give you
No,
one,
that's,
because it's taken a whole year for us to fix one,
Oh,
just
sure.
because of financially.
yeah,
We couldn't afford it at that point, we had to make choices on whether or not we were gonna feed our babies or,
Yeah.
get a part for the vehicle, so
Mhm.
there's,
Maybe we should add the clause, like where the definition of inoperable is, say the registered vehicle shall not be considered inoperable, or, one that is actively being fixed.
For maybe like for 1 year, so if when it's time to relicense, re-register or something like that, if it's still sitting there at that time, maybe you can at least point it out to someone or something that, hey, that's been sitting there for a year. Something like that possibly too.
well, I think the registered license / I think that,
I think that's pretty much cut and dry right there to me.
that needs to be in there so it's
Yeah.
clear.
Just on the flip side though, is that giving those who are taking it, would potentially take advantage of it? Is there something on the flip side of that where we're not gonna be able to address what we're ultimately trying to address here?
The big picture of local ordinance is voluntary compliance. We
Sure,
work
absolutely.
diligently every single day to have conversation with people about all the complaints that we receive on a day in, day out basis. The council receives the complaints, the Board of Works receives the complaints, the mayor, the city manager, the clerk, everybody receives these complaints. We do our due diligence, we have conversation. It is not the intent, and nor, I mean, I've been an employee here for 25 years, and it has never been the intent of the ordinance officer to harass people. What we're after is trying to clean up, beautify, make our community bigger, faster, stronger. That's what we're trying to accomplish. We understand the struggles of our families. We completely understand that. And if we get a complaint, if Jamie goes, and it's Jamie now, it could be Johnny in a month, I don't know, but whoever that is filling that role, they go and they have a conversation. If you say, hey, I money's tight, my transmission went out and the car is where it is. We can at least document it, we can put it back on the council, we can put it back on the Board of Works. This is going to be this way for 4, 5, 6 months, and it is what it is at that point. Again, the focus of these ordinances is voluntary compliance. We're not in the business to fine people and to tow their vehicles. We don't want to do that, period.
Right. No, certainly not. Yeah, I think this is just meant to try to provide more clarity, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes we make it harder by trying to put more words in it.
True, and that's true.
The focus of the process is just to have conversation and try to encourage people to clean up their mess, to help their neighbors out, to be good stewards of our community. That's the focus of the process.
Vanessa, thank you, sir, very much. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address? If not, the date of our next council meeting, August 8th. Wait, today's August 8th. It'll be 2 weeks from today. It will be 2 weeks from today. Huh? 22nd, thank you, at 6 p.m. And the next Public Works meeting will also be August 22nd at 1 p.m. I would hereby entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
We have a first, we have a second. Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Second to